What's up, everybody? I'm leaving. This is so weird. This is my last couple hours in Wheeling. Obviously, I'll visit again in the future, but it's back to living out of a suitcase for a while. And I'm honestly really happy. I'm glad that I came back to the States, but I've come to understand that what's best for me is to be in a new environment that's different than what I've had so far, because I want to kind of overcome a lot of the weaknesses I have. And in order to do this, I need to be in different environments than the environment that has created me, essentially. I need to be exposed to more different kinds of thought and people. And I'm really lucky because on YouTube, I get to talk to pretty much anybody through Skype, and that exposes me to tons of people, regardless of where I actually am. But in my personal life, I was raised traveling. I was always a foreigner, and I just don't really feel like I've ever really fit in the States. I've met people who I like who also feel like they don't fit in, but I've never really been able to maintain a healthy home environment where I live with people who I want to be like and they want to be like me as well. That's something that's really important to me, and I think I got a shot at that in Nicaragua, so I'm really excited. But I figured I'd do a video just talking about traveling in general. I'm going to show you what I am taking. So first off, let's talk about one distinction real quick. This is going to be a checked-in bag. This is a carry-in bag or a personal item. So on most planes, you're able to take one personal item, and then sometimes, depending on the plane, you'll also get a checked-in item, but often you have to pay for the checked-in item, okay? And in general, anything that you cannot afford to be away from or possibly lose, that should be with you at all times, okay? So for me, that is all of my work equipment, which means a laptop, right? And charger for said laptop, earbuds, microphone, cable for said microphone, and mouse. As long as I have these things, I can earn money and I'll be okay. So I always have these on my person, unless I'm actually in the place that I'm staying, in which case they stay in the safest location that I have access to, in case I get robbed or something. But when you're actually traveling, you have to have stuff on you, and you have to make a choice between the bag that gets stowed away in the cargo hold and possibly will be lost, broken, or damaged, or the bag that is with you at all times. Yeah? So make sure that the important stuff that you really, really need is here, because it is entirely possible and not unlikely that you will be separated from this bag for a period of time. Multiple times throughout my experience traveling, the bag's either missed a connecting flight or it's fallen off of a cart or something, and then you end up being away from your bag for a while. I've never had a bag actually get completely lost, but there was a time when I went to England where it didn't show up and then showed up at the doorstep of where my address was in England, completely beat up and taped together. It wasn't even a bag anymore. It's if this got cut into 7 different pieces and then just wrapped in tape to make it like a bowl and then shipped somewhere. That's what happened, right? But surprisingly, everything inside actually worked, aside from there was a bottle of glass that was completely shattered, right? And then other time, when I went to Nicaragua last time, my flight, the cargo part missed the connecting flight. So the cargo arrived about 12 hours later than I actually did. So I had to go back to the airport and go through that claims process. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're traveling, is that you want to have your valuable items with you in your carry-on personal, because you can have that around you all the time and do the best you can to make sure it's safe, right? Because when you're on a plane, at least, you don't really have to worry too much about theft. Theft typically is something you worry about outside of airports and airplanes. Once you're actually in the area that you're going to go to, right? But so now I'm going to talk about what I'm taking to Nicaragua. So I'm also taking my skateboard, and this, technically I'm supposed to pay separately for this, but what I've done in the past is I just kind of put it in my bag. There's a hole I put in the bottom of my bag. And then if I'm wearing it from the front, you can't actually tell that I have a skateboard unless you're behind me and you look at my butt. So that makes it easier to get away with because most of the time you interact with staff, you're like eye contact right in front of them. So normally you would pay for this separately, actually. But that's probably not going to happen. I'm going to try and avoid that by just traveling with my skateboard in my backpack, right? And so you take off the wheels, that kind of thing. So that's a skateboard. And then we have all the stuff that's in here. Tons of stuff. And a lot of it isn't mine, actually. So you can get most necessities cheaper in Nicaragua. But when it comes to like modern electronics, those are cheaper in the States. So it's pretty common when you're going to visit to like bring things for the people you're going to be staying with because they're harder to get in Nicaragua, right? So in that case, basically anything you can order online easily in the States is hard to get in Nicaragua because they can't just easily order stuff online. And so most of that is like Amazon. Anything you get on Amazon, basically. Anything you can buy in a store, like a department store, you can usually get in Nicaragua. But when you would normally get it online, you're going to have trouble, right? So one of my friends, so my three like close friends that I'm going to be around are Flavio, Camila, and Alba. And then there are other people as well, but those are probably the three that I will be interacting with the most, I imagine. And then they have a couple roommates and other people who I'll be living with as well. So it'll be really interesting. But this is for Alba. She skates, and when she travels, she wants like an easy way to store her skateboard. But it's kind of hard to find bags that are long enough to fit the skateboard inside of it. So she got this on Amazon, I think. And then Itchel, who's one of the other roommates, got a PS4. So that's been awesome. I've been playing Dark Souls. But so there's a couple games in here as well. And those are for her, like PlayStation stuff, right? And then the PS4 is underneath. She also got a bunch of comic books and that kind of thing. And it feels like I'm really happy because, like, looking at my suitcase is like often a moment for me because it's like when I'm like, oh, I'm about to be traveling, yada yada, and I usually try and keep everything really minimal, and I travel really light as a general rule, especially when because I'm going to Nicaragua with the intention to like be there a lot long term, right? So it kind of makes more sense to just buy things there because a lot of it's cheaper, like clothes and the basic necessities, right? But there is something inherently satisfying about looking in this suitcase and seeing stuff that's going to people that I care a lot about. There's something that's like really comforting about that, knowing that like I'm going, but I'm bringing things for other people. Other people are affected as well. And I know that it's just material stuff, but it's nice. So there's also, Flavio has a son. His name's Fabian, and he really likes Resident Evil 4. And so we got him this action figure, which was pretty cool because I had to like track it down, and I couldn't find one that was like reasonably priced on eBay or Mercari, but there was one for sale on Craigslist in like somewhere in the Midwest United States. So I messaged the guy and asked him if he used PayPal and if he would just ship it to me, and he did, which I was completely surprised about because a lot of people are sketchy about that because Craigslist specifically says like be wary of people who want to pay you with PayPal because it could be a scam, right? And it didn't matter at all. The guy was really trusting, and it totally worked out. So I was able to find something, and it worked. It worked out like perfectly. But that brings into another point is that like there's a lot of stuff that's missing in the balance of my life here in the States. And one of the things that I think is really important to a developing human is, like myself, is to be around as many a wide variety of different kinds of other humans, right? So for example, right now, I'm pretty much only around young people, and I occasionally talk to homeless people or old people, but I'm not like close to either, right? And in Nicaragua, I have access to a wider range of different parts of humanity, right? Because Flavio has a son, like I mentioned earlier, right? And right now I'm not around children. And I love children. I really like their energy. I'm much more comfortable around children and dogs and cats than I am around people, just because, like, I know how to make, like, a kid or a dog or a cat feel comfortable. I know what makes them feel, like, hurt or left out or lonely. They're much simpler in that sense. Whereas humans, like adults, are so fucking complicated, and it's so easy to offend people in some situations. And the only way that I can often find to learn and be positive around them is to just be really quiet and observe for a long time. And that's not always super comfortable. I don't feel like the best in that environment until I've gotten to the point where I understand the people I'm around and I trust them, which now takes a long time. Like, I'm very, very hesitant to trust people now, especially because of my personality type. It's very easy for me to get into a situation where I'm in, like, kind of not completely one-sided interactions with the people I'm around, but, like, I'm very motivated and interested in doing a lot for people and being as positive as I can. And that's just not something that a lot of people care about. So it becomes very easy for me to be doing like 80% of a relationship or 90% or something just because I can and I want to. Whereas other people, like, they don't view relationships that way. They don't, like, their roommate is just a roommate. It's not somebody who they, like, actively want to make happier and work with and look in the eyes of and talk to, right? It's a different story. But so, yeah, long story short, I want to be around, like, more stages of human life instead of just more... right now, I'm just kind of around young people in a town that doesn't really have many young people. So it's an interesting group. But I don't feel that it's very, like, inclusive of what you really need to be around. Like, I want to be around parents, I want to be around children, I want to be around grandparents, I want to be around, like, people who are really conservative and also people who are really liberal. I want access to the whole package. And I can fill in a lot of those gaps with YouTube because I can interact with anybody. So inherently that exposes me to these different kinds of people. But from my perspective, like, I'm in a position where I could expose myself to whole tons of different people in the world, and that's going to make me a more well-rounded and more compassionate, more understanding individual, and that's something that I continuously want to work on as I get older. So now I guess we can just get to the last couple things, and these are mostly old books, and so I'm just going to show you the title of these, like, 7 books that I've been looking into. Okay, first one is The Power of Habit. Next is Deep Work. After that is The Happiness Project. Then we have notebooks, graph paper notebooks. These are my favorite because I can keep my writing proportional. Next we have Getting Things Done. And then we have the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I think is the name of it. This is an old book. It's like 25 years old. Sorry. Yeah. And then Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. This is actually, I really like this book. I already read it. But maybe someone in Nicaragua will like it. I don't know. I'm trying to just travel with books that are more relevant to what I'm trying to work on right now, and, like, positivity and, like, looking at the root cause of your life, which is you, and making yourself as efficient as you can be by supplying your lifestyle with everything that you as an individual need to be at your best, right? And all of these books kind of contribute in some way towards that general philosophy. I believe that if you relentlessly pursue what makes you happy, then the only way for you to actually be happy is to feel productive, like you're progressing. That's what makes you feel happy, right? So you don't have to think about being productive. You just have to think of doing what makes you feel the most fulfilled and be motivated that way, and you'll happen to accomplish the act of becoming much more productive, as long as you really, really, really take it seriously and focus on what makes you happy, right? All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!